Welcome to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast with Sakar Cowley. During this program, you will hear guest experts sharing their experiences, best practices, and market insights. We discuss investing in multifamily apartment complexes and how a busy professional can passively invest hassle-free in various opportunities. Your host, Sakar Cowley, owns millions of dollars of assets and has done thousands of value-add projects over 20 years now. So listen in for insights. Here's your host, Sakar Cowley.
Welcome to another edition of Premium Cashflow Podcast. I am delighted to welcome Jason Yarusi today. He's a friend and he's with Multifamily Foundation and all the different companies he leads. Thank you for being on the show, Jason.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to talk again. How you been?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. As I said, he's a mutual friend. I know his wife, Pili, as well. Jason has been active with real estate for many years now. He has been syndicating deals. His group currently controls 800 units. They are looking for value-add opportunities where perhaps physical presence or some operational efficiencies that they can improve upon. They try to find and locate those projects and provide returns to investors. Currently, they are also doing the Jason and Pili Project, a YouTube channel, and they also host a podcast. They have a meetup. He is an avid runner, so would love to dig into some of his future coming races as well. So I appreciate your time, Jason. It's a pleasure to have you again.
It's great to be here. I'm taking down some notes and some thoughts here of what we talked before earlier. So excited to dive in.
Awesome. And for viewers and listeners who haven't been plugged in, Jason has been on prior episode podcast where we talked about how to get started, some of the details, and there has been a lot of great tips into that episode. So today we will break down, a lot of details around thought leadership, how to get it started, what different specific elements we can do. And I know Jason and Pili has been in the thought leadership space for a number of years now, and there's a lot more we can learn from them. So help us get started, Jason, in terms of, how is your real estate background, how you came about briefly, and how you got started into thought leadership space?
Sure. So I come from a heavy construction background and a small business background. I've started and exited a couple projects, including opening a restaurant, opening and selling a brewery, and others. And along the line, I have a family construction business that when Hurricane Sandy happened back, early 2011, 12-ish area there, it created an overwhelming need for specifically the business that my dad had created. So my brother and myself moved out to New Jersey to help the process of help meet the demand here. And it was a very busy job. If we had more hours or more days, we could have used them. And it just occurred to us very quickly because, as you mentioned, my wife, Pili, and I, we were pregnant with our first child, but we were so busy, we couldn't, find the time between night and day. And it just occurred to us that we needed to find a way to find our time back. And what was going to be that logical step that would give us the ability to choose our time and choose our days instead of having the other way around, the day choosing us, as so many of us get locked into this. And first natural step is we thought, real estate would be the way, which was a great thought, but not knowing what we didn't know, we started in one direction, right? We started with more transactional. Pili became a real estate agent. We started doing flips, wholesales, Airbnbs. And so now we're busy with the construction. We've just layered on, as you spoke to earlier, when you were first getting going with stabilizing properties, a lot of other jobs. So we went from busy to even more extremely busy, and we were going farther from that. The thing there is we took action, which sometimes you need to do to find what you don't want, right? So many times we will look at things but not take any action, and then not know if we like it or not because we haven't delved in. So we dove in, and although we were doing good, we weren't doing it great. And it took us to find out-of-state rentals. We were able to put together a team and a network and use our management experience to really stabilize the properties without us being physically involved, that we really saw the ability to buy rentals. And that first 2, 3, 4 units that we were buying, it occurred to me that although this was doing great, it wasn't scalable in a fashion that was going to bring us to that stage of finding the fulfilling life that we were looking for. And so heard about large multifamily. We dove in 2016, just learning everything we could, surrounding ourselves with the space, sold off the smaller properties, exited from doing flips and wholesales, and dove into large multifamily. And we closed on our first one back in 2017, a 94 unit that we just recently sold in early this year.
Sure. I appreciate the detail there. And I think you're very correct that sometimes you do a lot and you pretty much end up doing, and then you come to know that, oh, geez, we shouldn't have done that. And you rightfully said that sometimes it's important to do and then realize that, oh, that's something we didn't want,
Yeah, it's almost as important to eliminate things, because we say, oh, I just waste my time. No, you found out what you didn't want to do.
Absolutely.
And the more you can fast track it, the faster it's going to get you to what you do want to do. And the meetup, we'll have 2,000 members or so. I'll hear so many times that people will spend so much time to the education process, years to figure out how to do flips, right?
Sure.
And sure, you want to be conservative on your approach, but you can't sit in the sideline forever. Because I heard a person who said, I spent 3 years learning the space of flipping. In the first flip, I found out I didn't like working with contractors, so I'm not doing it anymore. But you look at that, it's 3 years where you could,
absolutely.
you've done so many things in a point. You just eliminate that at the beginning.
Sure.
Why it's not a waste of time. It's time not used wisely.
True, very true. And and even when it comes to multifamily, and what you stated earlier is also very true, Jason, is that I think you have to have a lot of management, construction, real estate type of lot of those many experiences of sorts, so that, when you're taking on these larger projects, you understand, what a renovation goes, what are the things you can expect, the contractor, the process. You add in the layer of, like external property management. You're, managing these properties from far. So in my opinion, it's all worthwhile. Again, it's a given sort of a paradigm that, yes, there are things that we don't want, but those are the lessons we come out. Those are the experiences that we come out. So it's almost like you're doing, but you're getting wiser as years roll on. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Right. You have to learn. And so many times we want things to happen overnight, right? Especially with social media. So if I click this button, something's going to happen immediately. And it's the same thing that I see people underestimating, is the amount of time it takes to make a change. And that can be, whether it's within themselves, they assume that they work out today and they're not going to be fit tomorrow, or, they buy real estate and they assume that year one, they're going to be able to have a 100-unit apartment building, that they're going to be able to get every single rent bump captured, within a week of owning the property. And so many times we don't think through the logical steps of, okay, if this was an overnight process, why wouldn't everybody do it? There's steps here and there's process, and the people who can sustain and put in the work and have the persistence, those are the ones that always come out on the other side.
Couldn't agree more. It's not a light bulb moment. It's a consistent action over the years that leads to profitable results. Now, Jason, I know you are big into space, educating passive investors, explaining them the benefits and things like that. And as we all know, mediums like this podcast is one medium where you are engaging the viewers, and experts like you come on, share their experiences and things like that. So I would like to, perhaps start the show by saying, I know you have done a lot of podcasting before as well, many shows with your Multifamily Foundation podcast also, right? Give us a sort of a break us down with a sense of, how a thought leadership platform is very important to get your name out and attract the passive investors, and give us different steps of the podcasting as well.
Sure. So I guess the best thing to talk about is that the days of having a CV or resume where that's going to be the first item that's reviewed for anyone, right? Where you and I grew up in that age where send me over your resume, or where's your CV, make sure you have it uploaded and like type font and everything. That is not significant anymore in the age of reality. People are going to Google you. They're going to look at your social profile and look who you are. And if you are looking to raise a capital and potentially in a big way,
Mm-hmm.
and your social platform is speaking to a narrative that does not make you look committed or trustworthy or having the right morals or speaking to the agenda that you talk to, well, it's going to make it difficult, especially for you to come through. Right. So if you're constantly a person who looks, flight of hand that each time something comes up, you're into the new space, you're into, Forex and then crypto and then Airbnb and then this, and now you're in a multifamily.
Sure.
These are longer term projects, right? So the passive investor wants to know what they're in for. They want to know ultimately, because we think a lot it's about us. But the big thing that usually hurts us from potentially finding good investors for the deal is that we have to realize that it's nothing about us. It's about the investor first. If I can't, and the investor is thinking, no, how can this help me? And the basic needs get back, does this help me eat, sleep, or survive, right? That's basic human needs. And we may go to the investor, I have the best project in the world, but what we miss out to start the conversation is, does this help the investor in any way? Because the investor, if I have a flip that you're going to make a ton and be interested for short-term capital, well, this may be exactly the opposite of what that investor is looking for, because maybe it's a doctor or a dentist that's already getting crushed on taxes per year, and it's not a viable investment. So if I'm not speaking to that investor, that person first, explaining what I'm doing, but also asking the question, how can I be of value? What is something that's going to be substantial that can help you reach your goals? Try and do this way before the investment and talk to people and just be excited, because if I know how I can help you, well, then I can bring you the right investments instead of doing the shotgun approach. And along with that, I can also now think confidently that when I do find an investment, I know, because I've already had these talks in the meantime, like what we're doing right now, we're raising capital. I'm having the talks prior to the deal. So I'm comfortable to know how much money I can potentially raise. Many times it happens, you find a great deal and you can find the money. Yeah, potentially, but it depends on the track record you laid down. If you're someone who just walked off the street, it's going to be very hard, because you're going to have to trust people. And if you haven't built up brand equity by talking to podcasts, by bringing on other thought leaders, by learning, by putting out good information to help other people, well, now you're fighting an uphill battle, because you hear no when it's too much information overload for someone. So if I came to you today and I had a deal in hand, and first time we met, and I'm like, so tell me about what you want. Okay, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is the type of opportunities I'm looking for. This is the type of returns you're going to get. And I have this opportunity. Will you invest? And now you've just gotten hit over the head with so much information. You're just like, whoa, hold on. And you may never even heard about investing in apartment buildings. Let alone, you may think it's just something that you can do as a REIT, or it's for institutional players. And so you're trying to learn this whole uphill battle, and then now invest in me at the same time. It's too much for someone to take in their mind.
Absolutely. And I also like to say that even as small of an investment that folks do when they're investing in stocks, people are studying the stocks, the companies, the PE, the earnings. They are like delving into all kinds of sector details for hours together before even purchasing a small stock, right? And then, as we all know, the passive investment in real estate are obviously much larger dollar volume. I mean, amounts. You could be talking $50,000-$100,000, right? So you're rightfully correct. There is that you have to sort of nurture and establish that relationship ahead of time, and sort of take the baby steps, getting to know people, nurture that relationship, and then, start to introduce things like that, right?
Well, so the nurturing process from stocks, if you think about it, let's just take that to the narrative, right? So plenty of differences in there, but okay, if you're going to buy Coca-Cola, Geico, Tesla, Apple, well, they've been nurturing you with their branding and their message all along. So you're walking in warm to that product. Most people are not just throwing darts at the wall and picking a stock off that. They've heard of this investment through something that's built up brand awareness to that point, instead of you just showing up cold. And that becomes a lot different with stocks. And that's why they're a very attractive metric for a lot of people to jump into.
Absolutely. Now, give us some pieces, Jason. Like, I know podcast would be one, but share some of your thoughts and experiences as to what all different things you have done to kind of attract more passive investors, or perhaps stay in touch with your existing investors as well.
So you have to, I'll speak to new people, right? So
Sure.
you have to realize that not everybody's on every platform, and different people find different ways, right? So,
Sure.
so if people start talking over text, that's probably how the conversation is going to go. If it's that with email, it's probably that. Is that with phone call? But it's the same thing with social platforms, right?
Sure.
You look at them as like TV stations, right? So you Fox, ABC, CBS. Someone doesn't watch every channel, right? They're going to watch a certain channel that jives with them. So
Sure.
you're going to have your narrative that's going to talk to people on Facebook, and you're going to have your narrative that maybe talks to, more of a picture-oriented crowd on Instagram. Then you're going to have a business crowd that's going to have a different language on LinkedIn. So you want to have reference points, and you can take the same piece of content and brand it for each particular space. And you can take it even further, put that up on places like Medium that allow for longer form content. And so you want to make sure that you're using the content, but getting out the right message across each platform, because the same message doesn't work at every spot, right? And
sure.
Using that, for us, we do that to get out to the investors and then and bring up as much content can be helpful. And then for our current investors, if they're in a deal, we're following up with them monthly about the property. And we talk to them about, what's going well, what is not going to plan, and what we're doing to pivot to correct what's not going to plan. And then the same thing with investors. We're having monthly communication, keeping them updated, whether they've been active before or they are active now. And it may sometimes be more, but generally we're keeping the message pushing forward, just keeping a narrative. Because we all have the thing that it's, out of sight, out of mind. Right. And so if you're not having a constant flow, people forget about it. Oh, I didn't realize you were still doing that.
Sure. Now share with us some techniques, Jason, as to how you can relate some life experiences and maybe equate them to real estate, or how you can establish that rapport with somebody who may not have, heard of you or know, or they want to know, hey, how can, really I can invest in passively with real estate. What are some of the sort of the tips or some strategies you have done to educate the passive investors who may not have heard of passive investments?
Well, people want you to be real and honest, right? And that's where train wrecks like reality TV come in, because people see behind the curtain of like what really happens. So if you're just out there shouting about how great everything is, you shout a lot of people off. You want to talk to the investments, why you did, a logical thought process to what you're doing and where you've started and the steps you've taken to grow. People need to connect with that. They want to see that this wasn't, I'm not the finished product that started out.
And you're not like an overnight success of sorts,
exactly.
Right?
And that's what a lot looks like. You see a band that's mega stars, but you missed the 30 years that they were driving around in an RV, right? You miss that because now you just see the present. So talking about that allows people to understand, and it helps them along. I have an investor that's coming in the deal, and he's just like, I'd like to, I'm going to be a limited partner. I'm in no matter what. I'd love to just hear more and be more involved to see what's happening. I'm like, absolutely. This is a stepping stone for people to become active, is that sometimes they just want the curtain pull back a little because there's that hinge, whatever it is, of uncertainty that they can't surpass yet. That if you can help them across that threshold, it not only helps you, but it also helps them, and it creates a relationship that they're now going to see you as that thought leader because you're providing value, something they need.
Sure. So now, Jason, we have, like, let's say the elementary medium of podcasts, then you have webinars, you have meetups, right? And things like that. Could you maybe share some advice as to, how someone, can scale up into different avenues of, proliferating the content or cross-pollination of some of the existing content? Give some strategies as to, what have you done, or what sort of your experiences you have had into different sort of the thought leadership platforms that we can establish.
So the easiest answer, you just have to start. And anything is better than nothing, right?
Sure.
And you may say, I don't like video, or I don't like writing, or I don't like, you have to find where you can start your message. But it's important, as we said before, to talk on all platforms, because you're going to reach more people. But you can, just like we're doing here, right? So I'm sure this is going to become a video and audio, right? So now you have the ability. Now you could turn this into a blog, right? You could turn this into small edible clips, right? Some social teasers. You can turn this into a number of different points right there. So you can take one piece, and it doesn't take you doing 90 different shows, but you can take that. Or if you have a very local presence, fine, start a meetup. And right now it can be an online meetup where you have people speak that can come in. So the good thing here that comes up with these, right, is that I could have a podcast and not know anything because I'm just learning. But now I could bring you on who's highly experienced and you can give me so much value.
Sure.
And all I have to do is ask questions and listen, right?
Sure.
But doing that and creating that bridge now creates me as the thought leader because I've now connected the process of bringing value to others.
Sure.
And you continue to do that and you continue to do that and just really be curious. So where many shows fail is that they don't have the curiosity, right? They're using it for something and they're more worried about the result than actually being engaged to hear the question and provide value. So
interesting.
Like the meetup has been a great point for deals, for money, for other things, but we went there just to talk about what we're doing with no, and maybe it was silly, but we didn't start the meetup saying, hey, we're going to get money from this meetup. No, it was just, wow, there's no multifamily meetups in New Jersey that are strictly multifamily. And I don't want to go to other meetups that talk about everything every other month that are just all over the place. I don't want to create that because I'm not doing that. So let's create something that just talks that space because I'm sure if we do this, we'll provide value, but we'll learn stuff.
Sure.
And with that came all these other things, lead generation, new contacts, new partners, new investors that came because I wasn't there saying, hey, we're here to get your money. That was never the talk track or the thought. It was that we need to create this to help. And when you bring that value, it comes back tenfold.
Absolutely. So like, what are the like different speakers or things you have done in your meetup, Jason, as far as, I know recently I have attended personally your multifamily foundation workshop as well, I should say. That was another sort of, I would say, a stepping stone towards something more, right? But specifically talking about meetups, right? Give us a sense of, when did you start? What was sort of the elementary genesis of it? Like, maybe you had 10 sort of 10 attendees first, and then how it sort of grew. Give us some progression on that.
Well, I think you want to find a space that's going to be specific because there's enough out there doing kind of like the kitchen soup kind of thing.
Sure.
So we just found a space. And we said, okay, we're going to do this. We put it up in Meetup and we had like 30, 40 people show up in the first meeting because I think it was something that was intriguing. That was specific. So people knew they were going to come in. And we started in 2018. I think the first year we didn't even have speakers. I don't even know because we just went through what we were doing to get the first deal we did. We just talked about it. And that allowed us to get better with our talk track as well, right? Because we're not perfect. Like if you're raising capital, the first couple calls, if you've never done this before, are probably going to be hard because you don't know your speech, right? You don't know your tone. So, but your thing there is you get the words out, let the questions you get back really make you better, right? If you keep hearing the same question over and over and over again, well, now include that in your narrative, right? So now that can become, and it's like anything else, right? If people are asking you for it and you hear enough of it, well, it's definitely a need that you need to solve.
Absolutely. Now, Jason, speaking of, sort of the investor database and things like that, you can have, sort of an elementary Excel sheet or, folks have different CRM tools as well, where they are doing a lot more exotic, automated, emails and checkings and, things like that. Give us a sense of, sort of the baby steps, like when someone should kind of progress into, hey, you're into Excel, maybe go into, something automated, then maybe go into a CRM. Give us some of your experiences around that.
I'll say that I know some people that have had thousands of units still done Excel, right? So it comes down to how versed and how well you track your data, right? If you're a mishmash, you may need to get an investor portal earlier on or a CRM because you have to be responsible for the data. Because if people are going to align and give you hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars, you want to make sure that you are being a purveyor of protecting your capital. And if you have data running wild, it's also going to speak to how you handle your business, right? So if the back end is a mess, the front end is probably not far behind it.
Sure. Now, do you typically advise active investors to perhaps look into tools like, let's say, Pipedrive or a HubSpot or different contact management systems of sorts?
There's always one that can help push on that, like MailChimps and the others, right? So they're
Sure.
good for the resource to help you with a template, and it's just things that can take out the steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I eliminate steps from this process that can make this a more fluent, investor-friendly experience? So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, you want to look at them and see how it can benefit you and make the process, okay, it was 10 steps, now it's 3. Okay, does that
Mm-hmm.
help me? And does it make the user experience better for the investors?
Sure.
Right?
Awesome. Now on to the very important and a central question, Jason, that I think that's dear to my heart, and I think you'll appreciate also, is that there's a strong connection always between personality development, how you view your attitude, how you develop yourself, and that sort of transforms into real estate and perhaps a lot of other things, right? So I'd like to know, Jason, that you are a high performer. You are running marathon races and 51 milers, 100-mile, as you shared before. Give us a sense of how you view this as a personal passion that transforms beyond you and transcends into perhaps your team, or how you're approaching life in general to conquer bigger, better things. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So great question. So the first thing that comes to mind is that we daily have to win against ourselves, right? That's the first thing that needs to happen, because if we can't win against ourselves, then we can't do anything else, right? If we're going to, and doubt's always going to be there. Thoughts about failure, thoughts about not being good enough, thoughts of not being it. It's always going to be there.
Sure.
And the more you can control your mind and control your attitude, that's going to allow you to push forward. And I do that creating having a morning routine that I keep consistent on, setting up small wins. Just as my alarm goes off, I get up, not letting the snooze happen 10 times, because now I've already told myself it's okay to lose. Little things like that magnitude add up over time, because as we grow, we let ourselves off the hook more and more and more. And when you do that with yourself, it carries through, right? So I can't ask someone else to do something I won't do myself.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not speaking it, then they're not going to believe in the message from a teammate. If I'm telling them to do something that I haven't done or don't wholeheartedly believe, or just want to put them out there, well, they're not going to believe in that, because I'm not willing to step up and do it myself. And carrying through with that instead of running, the running creates a point where it's a core scenario I can think. I get a lot of thoughts rolling through when I run. It's a clean space for me to start, but it also sets my day. And it pushes my ability to know that there's always more I can go. I ran 1 mile. Okay, can I do 10? I did 10 miles. Okay, can I do 20? I do 20 miles. Can I do a marathon? Okay, I did a marathon. Can I do 30 miles? Sure. If I do 30 miles, can I do 51 miles? Okay, I do 51 miles. Okay, can I do 100 miles? And each point, there's always a point where your body's like, okay, I can keep going. I figured it out, and you fight your body through it, and then your mind starts telling you, not just like these things, right? So yeah, I want to have, a fulfilling life, right? Oh, but that might be hard. So maybe I'll try tomorrow. Well, it's the ability to say, no, I've set up wins. I know I can win. I'm going to do this right now. And I might fail. That's the honest truth. I might fail right now, but if I do, I'm just going to get up and try again.
Absolutely.
That's the option I have.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter how many times you sort of fall. It matters, how many times you again, get back up and keep going. And also, I think you really sort of alluded to your morning routine. All the listeners to the podcast would love to know what sort of morning routines you have, and what sort of things you do.
Sure. So it depends, because we do some different little workout things, but I'm typically getting up between 4 and 5. I typically set up about 4:13 a.m. as my mile marker. I'll get up at that time, get down, drink water, have coffee, meditation, affirmations. I do some brain games. Depending on that time, some of the kiddos might have jumped up, because some of them are still early risers. Have a moment to connect with them. I've already set myself up and have my mind ready and give myself clean space, and then I'll go for my run. And I try and carry that through, because what happens so much is that the day is chaotic. Whether you think it's not going to be, it is. every day for everybody is chaotic because things happen throughout the day.
Sure.
And so if I can't set myself up to control at least the morning and set that narrative, well,
Mhm.
then it's like catching a train when the train's in between the stops, right? You're trying to
Sure.
jump on a speeding train right in the middle,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Because now
Sure.
you're just going to wake up into chaos and you're not able to really rationalize the moments throughout the day because you haven't prepared for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love all that. I appreciate your time, Jason. Always a great pleasure to have you and learn from you, actually. As I already said, I mean, you're a great friend and a great share. So I personally learned a lot. So I appreciate, and I'm sure viewers will find a lot more thoughtful advice from you on all different aspects. So it's been a pleasure, Jason. Please kindly share with the listeners what new things you have going on and how listeners can get hold of you.
Sure. Yeah. So we're excited over at the Jason Peely Project. You can definitely check out the podcast there. We've been doing a live show Monday through Friday called Second Cup of Coffee Live with Jason and Peely. And Instagram, you want to see a bunch of running, go over to Instagram, Jason Yarusi. You also see Peely because she's out working me most days, Peely Yarusi over there. But always super appreciate you having me back on the show. Love being here. Love what you're doing. Love to watch and continue to see the show grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And it's been a pleasure having you. Listeners of the podcast can find us more details on premiumcashflow.com and read more about and listen to the prior episode with Jason as well. We also have a lot of news and articles and different reports that we share from time to time. So you can check us out. And if you are willing to establish a relationship with us and look into some interesting opportunities that you may have, you can always register yourself using Invest with us, and we can jump on a phone call and find out what your interests are and how we could help you and, to achieve your goals. So thank you, Jason. I look forward to, chatting with you again in future. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Awesome to be here as always.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at premiumcashflow.com to sign up for weekly updates, research articles, and more. We will see you again for another great interview with an expert guest.